Welcome to another podcast episode of Nuggets with Sauce, Thought Leadership for Thoughtful Leaders, presented by me, Michelle Arntz. Well, hello and welcome to yet another episode of Nuggets with Sauce. I am your host, Michelle Arntz, and how do I even begin to describe the energy and excitement that I have with my guest here today, Andy Hite. Holy Dinah, Dinkadoodle, woo-hoo. You are here. I just want to let everybody know, just for a little context, and Andy's going to explain himself in just a second, his intro here, but I just want to say that I have had an amazing year doing some work with Andy, or Andy's doing some work on me, is probably more like it. And by the way, I do not get a toaster oven for saying that, but in fairness, he doesn't get a toaster oven from me either. But that said, Andy, welcome to Nuggets with Sauce. And as always, I like to ask my guests to find a way to explain who they are in this world without giving a job title. So how about you share with me in the world, what do you do? What gets you fired up and out of bed every day to make the world a better place?
I love it. First off, thanks for having me.
Of course.
It's so good to be here, and I know you and I have had many a conversations about work, leadership, entrepreneurialism. So super excited for the convo and the invitation. So who am I and what do I not what do I do? So first and foremost, I'm a husband and father. The things that are most important to me are my three ladies, wife Sasha and twin daughters Rowan and Sylvia. They are the biggest reason I get up and do what I do.
And one of your biggest leadership roles, yeah?
We can get into that. Yes. Oftentimes, and you've heard me talk about this, I think leadership is very much tied to, not tied to, but mirrors good parenting.
I agree.
Those that are good leaders tend to be good parents. Good parents tend to be good leaders because they kind of are similar in how we work with our kids or our employees.
Let's put that nugget in the warming drawer. We're going to get
Let's
back
do
to
it.
that one because I
Yeah.
wholeheartedly agree. I love that. So husband, father, beautiful.
Yeah. And so what I do to help support those three ladies that I love, is the thing that I most want to do in the world is impact lives. And I do that through this thing we call coaching. I love working with leaders, basically helping them get out of their own way, become the best version of themselves so that they can go out and create the best version of whatever results they want to create in the world.
Love that.
And usually when that happens, things work out. I really like to work with leaders because when they become better leaders, the lives and leadership of the people that are around them become better.
100%. I think, and I think that's such a critical thing that you just shared there, Andy, is, the whole idea of get out of your own dang way.
Yeah.
How many leaders are stuck, and in being stuck in themselves, guess what? Rolls downhill.
Yeah, I mean, hey, we came into this world and we were in the care of some parents and communities and schools and mentors that shaped us. A lot of it is great, and some of it taught us things that we actually don't need.
Yeah, learning.
And that's the things that get in our way, right?
Yeah,
The belief systems that don't support us
right.
in expressing our full potential. And
Yeah,
that's really what I want to do with performance coaching is like help people get those filters, those beliefs, those ideas and perspectives out of their way that don't serve them so that they can go do the thing they want to do.
I love that. I love that. Now, just before we dive back, and we'll open up that warming drawer again, if you like, or, we'll go off on another tangent entirely because it's you and me, Andy. So I know this is going to get all over the place. Buckle up,
and hundreds of thousands of people that are tuning in.
Right. Everybody buckle up. We're going for a ride here in just a moment. And just before that, I always like to ask my guests, do you have a recommended read, watch, or listen? It doesn't have to be business related, but just something you want everybody to go, okay, pay attention to this.
I am probably my coach says a little too single-minded.
Mm.
I just love what I do and do what I love, right? So what I could say is I've been turned on by this podcast uh, called Diary of a CEO,
Diary
and
of
I've
a
just been
CEO.
devoured. Have you heard,
Oh,
Stephen,
yeah,
his
listen to it.
podcast?
And I know you mentioned it recently, so it's definitely on my check it out list.
Yeah, I've just been kind of going episode by episode. Stephen is an incredible interviewer. He really takes his interviewees deep and pulls out some incredible nuggets with sauce.
Wow.
So that would
That
be a
competition.
great listen. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, I love that recommendation. I myself will be checking it out. All right.
Good.
So with all that said, we could go back and open the warming drawer for pull out that nugget about parenting and leadership if you want, or maybe there's
Sure.
some other nuggets you'd like to share with our listeners. And just out of curiosity, is there any flavor of sauce do you think that's going to go with this conversation? Are we sweet and
I'm a hot sauce
wonderful?
kind of dude.
You're hot sauce. You are a hot sauce dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, maybe a little mango in it, a little fun.
Oh,
But
yeah. A
yeah,
little,
I like just getting right to the thing,
yeah.
something that's going to wake us up.
I love. All right. Well, let's get right in there. So, which way do you want to go with this? Do we want to go back to the parenting, or
I
are you seeing
I
something
really
else
do
out there?
like, for those that are parents or have nieces or nephews or kids in their world, it tends to become a really great lens through which to see leadership,
I agree.
parenting, and
Yeah.
kids, right? Our role as adults when it comes to kids, hopefully, is to first and foremost care about them, create a lot of psychological safety so that they can go out and explore and discover the world, right? That is so important and overlooked in leadership,
Totally.
right?
Yeah.
I also think a good parent wants their kid to blossom into the best version of who they could possibly be. And they do everything in their power to help lay the table there. I think that is good leadership.
Oh, we see that all the time. I mean, here's the corporate equivalent of this, if I may say, the business equivalent. Jimmy, that is not the way you learn how to walk.
Right, exactly.
You suck at walking. I am evaluating your walking capabilities, and I
You
am not
need to get
pleased.
over here within
Right now.
by 4:30 this afternoon.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if you stumble, you're going to get a pip.
Yeah. Right.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like I love what you're saying. And this, of course, I'm being a shitty little whatever when I say that. But I mean, isn't it crazy that it makes so much sense on the side of the house when we talk about, like, would you scream at your toddler when they're trying to learn to walk? I mean, you might, but there's something wrong with you. And
Yeah, it just wouldn't be good parenting.
right.
Nor good leadership.
Right. You when you mention psychological safety and we talk about, like, this is about encouraging, this is about growth, this is about get up and try it again. This is about, well, you didn't win it this time. That's okay. Doesn't make you a loser for life. You're fired.
Yeah.
Imagine firing your children. I guess that's what spanking or grounding is. I don't know. But you move into that realm of, then why is it so difficult for us to understand that we as human beings, even as adults in the work world, still need that encouragement and that space and that opportunity?
You asked a really good nuanced question there. Why is it difficult for us to understand? I actually don't think it's difficult to understand.
Maybe not understand, but
it's difficult to implement.
Right. Then why
it's difficult to actually be that parent or that leader.
Right.
Because that requires a lot more of us than, for example, just being the manager that says, get the report to me by 4:30. And if not, there are going to be consequences. Management and leadership are distinct. They are not the same. And they do get different results.
Yeah. And I did say in episode 1 in Nuggets with Sauce, I said, I'm going to interchangeably use those two terms. And I do that deliberately because while they are distinct, our ideal move in this world is we need to have managers who think and act more like leaders. And so one of the ways we have to do this is get that mindset of think and act and behave and be like a leader, which definitely isn't going to be the micromanaging and again, think of that from a parenting style. If you're parenting like a manager, which you kind of have to do to some degree, but you also have to think about your parenting like a leader and vice versa.
Yes. And like a really good parent, their job is to put up guardrails.
Right.
Not to say you have to get from here to here this way, but just come from here to here and don't go out the side of these rails so that
Right.
they learn
Yeah.
how to do it their way. They have some autonomy, they have some self-expression. Same thing in leadership. It reminds me of one of my favorite quotes by Simon Sinek.
Love Simon. He's
I
such a
mean, come on, when it comes to leadership, he's the OG, right?
is.
Leadership is not being in charge. It's taking care of those in your charge.
Right.
That's leadership.
Servant, and very much that servant leadership approach as well, because I mean, it's so crazy, but yeah. And not only do you need to give them the space and the guardrails to say, hey, I want you to, you got to get from here to here. I'm not going to let you fall off a cliff, light yourself on fire, whatever other possibilities are between points A and B, but also don't do it for them.
Right.
You're not going to walk for I mean, I don't know. Yes, there's been a lot about helicopter parents and bulldozer parents. And, how many people in the leadership or management space are also sitting there, oh, fine, I'll just do it. It's just quicker and easier if I do it.
Yeah, and that's so you said how is it difficult to understand? I think they understand, but that's where it's difficult to implement because oftentimes we're more concerned about the result, immediate result,
Yeah.
than we are long-term result. Talk about Simon Sinek. He's got another great book out
Yep.
called The Infinite Game.
Right.
Oftentimes we're just worried about this quarter and
Yeah.
we've got to hit our numbers for this quarter.
Yep.
Well, oftentimes that we fall short of what our potential is long term, the long game,
Yeah.
by just thinking short term.
Absolutely. It's like we're so busy looking at the minutia up close that, the horizon is completely missed, right? It makes me think of those Monty Python moments where they look like they keep running at you and they're far away, and they keep running at you and they're far away. And the next thing you know, they're right on top of you.
Bam.
Bam.
Yeah.
And everything's so instantaneous in this world. Like, I got to have it right now. You're supposed to come preloaded with all your mental software and know everything on your job. That's unrealistic. That's part of, as Andy, my passion and purpose is the development part of learning and development.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen in a 1-hour session on a Tuesday afternoon, people. It takes
never
an effort, like
well, and that's again where it gets hard, right? Because it takes energy and effort that oftentimes takes someone out of like their computer, or they're landing the project, or they're doing their thing. Leadership, I won't say it's hard, because I think hard is just a context some people can fall into. It's challenging. It is a different muscle than just making sure we hit metrics.
Right. I think that's a great way of putting it, and muscle can be built.
Oh, of course.
Muscle can be flexed, and muscle can be, you can have muscle memory, you can build it up, you can work on it and sculpt it and create it to what you want to be. And the more, just like, the more you do that, the more comfortable it becomes.
Yeah.
First time doing anything is going to be hard. Like the parenting thing. I don't know. I'm personally not a parent, but I did my time as a teacher, and, you got 30 of them at a time. It is something to behold. And it's like, what do we often say? Parenting is one of the hardest jobs out there. Well, leadership, being a true leader of others, it takes effort too.
Yeah.
Right.
I will attest to parenting being the hardest job ever.
I'm sure.
I'm not going to take my hat off, because it's my hair's probably a little messy, but a lot of it's gray.
Yeah, right.
Because I spend a lot of my time thinking about, I shared early on, the things that's most important to me are my kids and my wife. I spend a lot of time thinking about, how do I support them? How do I help them? How do I lay the table so that they can really create something for themselves?
But I listen to those words. How do I help?
Yeah.
Support, not do it for them, not command, not control, but say, hey, how do I set that table? How do I make that space? I always think, and I said this all the time when I was in the classroom, like, I've made it easier for you to get it right than get it wrong around here. Like, part of my job is to make it easy for you to do what you're supposed to do. Right?
Yeah.
Drills. guideposts.
And often another challenging part of it is, for example, my kids, they are polar opposites.
And they're twins
One,
too, though, aren't they?
they're
Which is so
yeah, I
fascinating.
mean,
So they're
they're
twins.
polar opposites in every way. But yeah, I have to parent them very differently.
Oh, wait,
As
what? No,
leaders,
no, stop right there.
yeah,
One size doesn't fit all when it comes to
exactly.
managing your kid. What?
Yeah, and that becomes a challenge in leadership. But part of part of the challenge is not just them, but is regulating us so
Yeah,
that we can step back and assess, oh, this employee needs this.
yeah.
This employee actually has no problem with that. They need this. So that, yeah, as you say, there's no one size fits all.
No.
And oftentimes, I put a post on LinkedIn the couple of days ago. Oftentimes, the hardest thing in leadership is, in order to be good at leadership, it's not as much about what we do, it's more about who we are, because
Right.
that
Yeah.
dictates what we do. And so
Right.
leaders really have to do a lot of self-reflection and internal work so
Yep.
that they can get themselves out of the way, have a little altitude, and see each employee, see each team, see the entire picture of the business,
Yeah.
and be able to orchestrate. Oftentimes, if we're in the trenches with them, it's very difficult to do and be that.
Right, right. Which requires a lot of different things. Where's that trust to say I can step back and out of the way because I've got the right, I've done the right things. I've got the right people. I've set them up for success. When you talk about the differences with your daughters, which is so so fascinating I mean, of course, everybody's different. And then you think about it from an
No, they're
employee standpoint.
different.
Yeah.
Right.
And they're teenagers, so they're special too. But you think about that from an employee and leadership standpoint, and it's like, I'm sure you can attest to this from a parenting position. We often, I think, confuse equality and fairness as well, right? So you are being very fair with leading your children as their father and saying, like, this one needs this and this one's, because we want to dole out a lot. We scream a lot about equality. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. There's a lot of things we should be screaming about equality. But I wonder sometimes in this realm, leaders aren't necessarily thinking about, when people are saying equal, what they really mean is, I mean, if everything was equal, we wouldn't have any wheelchair ramps.
Yeah. I
It'd be
mean, I had this
unfair.
conversation with a client probably a month ago, where there were two of their leaders. One was getting a massive bonus and one wasn't.
Mm,
And the other was like really, really, really upset,
mm,
which I understand,
mm.
but not all things are equal. What
Right,
is fair is the agreement.
right.
If this, then that, that's fair.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. Yeah, there is a distinct difference.
Yeah. Fairness is also about, as we like to say, in fairness, this person needs something that this person doesn't.
That's right.
So, behooves you as a leader to know your people and
That
know.
is leadership. I mean, could you be
Duh.
a great parent if you didn't know your kids, if you didn't know what drove them, if you didn't know what they wanted to be and accomplish? It's not possible,
No, no.
because then you're just orchestrating.
Yeah.
Then you're just like directing traffic.
If you can even get that done, especially with
Yeah,
kids, they come and they go.
trust me.
Please don't
Yeah,
stand on the open dishwasher
like
door.
herding cats.
Yeah, exactly. But it's all and that takes effort, that takes time, that takes energy. There's no doubt about it. And dare I say that, is it fair to say that it's also important that, as much as a leader or parent gets to know their child, isn't it important that it goes the other way around? They need to get to know you.
Yeah, you have to be open, right? Oftentimes, I see this a lot in leadership, um, that leaders are afraid to be vulnerable. They're afraid to admit mistakes. They're afraid
Oh,
to
can never be
show
wrong.
that they're human.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and all that does is it creates an atmosphere where employees and teams don't necessarily feel safe.
No.
Like, how could I show my flaw to my leader when
Right.
they either we know they make mistakes and they don't admit it, so mistakes aren't good, or they're just perfect. Well, I could never live up to that. I'll never
Right.
show that.
Yeah.
It's important. Vulnerability and authenticity are hallmarks of good leadership. You know, our
Absolutely.
good friend, I'll call her good friend, never met her and probably never will. Brene Brown talks about
Mhm.
that's her entire body of work is
Yeah.
vulnerability, you know,
Yeah.
courage to lead.
Right. Yeah. Stick your neck out there. You're asking your employees to stick their neck out for something. If you're not going to do it, and that's the leading thing. If my leader isn't going to do it, if they don't talk about it, they don't pay attention to it, they don't promote it, whatever the case may, people are following those cues and clues, right? Even if you're not saying it,
Trust me, again, going back to the parenting thing,
of course.
I am totally seeing, especially in the past 2 years, some of my not so proud characteristics that I'm not so proud of come to life in my kids
Mm.
because they watch, they
They watch,
emulate,
they listen, they learned.
this is how they learn to navigate the world
Mhm.
through who I and my wife are being.
Yeah.
Same thing applies in the workplace.
Yeah. And people learn very quickly, like, oh, this doesn't matter. We never talk about this. Or, oh, I saw your reaction or your facial expression to somebody in the meeting. I'm shut down. Somebody just got barked at, reamed out, screamed at, disciplined, whatever the case may be. Well, I'm never going to stick my neck out, and you touched on the idea too about, especially well, we're going to have a whole other conversation about this one, I know, but like talking about the fear of failure and the idea that as leaders, like we're supposed to be infallible. Like I'm never wrong. Oh, bullshit. You're probably wrong on it. I know I was wrong a lot when I was in a leadership position in a large company. We're wrong all the time. We have to admit that it's emotional intelligence for one thing, and it's hypocrisy at its worst otherwise. Like
Well,
you're gonna sit there and tell me you're not wrong? No credibility after that, right?
yeah, well, you talk about failure. Failure is a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
It's the only place we learn and grow.
Right.
You know, by accomplishing something we've done before or we know how to do, there's no new growth in that.
No.
It is only through failure that we learn, right? Going back to toddlers.
Yeah. I was
If
just
they
saying,
learn by falling,
right. I
they
was
get their
exactly.
balance by risking the fall.
Mhm.
I
And
think it
by
was
the way, they
Jeff
grow up.
Bezos at Amazon. I mean,
Yeah.
the huge company that they are,
Yeah.
they've built that company on failures. He even talks about, you think you've seen big failures, you haven't seen nothing yet because we're going to fail bigger.
Yeah. Just about anybody who got anywhere, and you can go right back to Edison or whatever you want. It
The
was like
classic Edison,
the classic Edison.
10,000. I don't even know how many it is. I've heard 1,000, 10,000. But yes, the point is risk failing,
Yeah.
missing the mark, because it is through that
Yeah.
that we learn and grow and become better and we get
Right.
higher, bigger, better results.
And I think both expecting it of others as well as expecting it of ourselves.
Yeah.
I mean, my head went exactly where yours did, around again, would you holler at your toddler and say, your attempts at standing up are pathetic? Don't ever do that in front of me again. Don't ever do that again as you're grabbing the coffee table or what, and no, if your kid tries whatever it is, your 7-year-old is trying dance lessons for the first time and he struggles with it, are you going to bash on him and say, I'm never letting you do that again, no more dance classes for you, buddy?
The
Like,
sad, I know this is
there
not
are
the
people who
point of our
probably
topic.
will.
The sad thing is that stuff does happen, but yes, that's not good
It's
parenting.
not
It's not good
good.
leadership.
Yeah, gonna grow up with scars.
Yeah.
Seriously, and the flip side is allowing ourselves in our parenting or leadership spaces to be like, I am going to make mistakes. And as long as
It's
I'm learning from
really,
those mistakes, it should be okay for me to make mistakes. And I'd like to have the kind of culture and support and trust with others in my circle, like your family isn't going to bash all over you if you stumble.
no, the problem is we just, I went through this, I think it was Monday or Friday. No, not Friday. Anyway, within the last week.
Yeah.
Um, I'd had a bad day because frankly, I had made a proposal with a potential client and they said no. I had another proposal that day and they're like, well, maybe let's talk in 2 weeks.
Mhm.
Um, and I can take those things hard because I care about what I do and I care about
Yeah.
um, building the business and making an impact.
Mhm.
And my daughter texted me that day and she goes, how are you? What's going on? And my instinct is to go, it's going great. It's going fine. But I'm like, who would I be if I wasn't real with her and let her know that everybody has a really, really bad day sometimes? So I texted her. I'm like, well, this is what happened. This is what happened. She's just a genius kid, 17. She goes, I'm so sorry to hear that, Dad, but you'll get the next one. I believe in you. No joke. That's leadership.
Wow.
I'm
Yeah.
so sorry to hear that. I know that hurts, but you'll get the next one and I believe in you.
See, she paid attention to those lessons from you as much as paying attention to the stuff that was not necessarily of your better nature.
Yeah, well,
You catch both
she's
sides.
in therapy like we all are for those things, but
There, yay. And that's the other thing. By the way, get help when you need help with this stuff, right? You don't have to do it alone. But I think that is so interesting and so vital. This is something that stuck with me, dare I say, since the 90s, because back in grade 2 or
when
whatever.
I was a baby, not really.
Back when I was just a wee thing, I was in the advanced class and we were talking about leadership development. But one thing that always stuck with me out of a leadership practices model, and there were 5 or 6 things in the model. Anyway, the one that always stood out for me the most was model the way.
Yes,
Model the way. Be whatever, be the Gandhi thing that says, be the change that you want to see.
I was just getting ready to quote that. Most
This is
people
my week.
quote that in terms of like social justice or like world peace. I think it's the same thing in every part of life.
Yeah.
Be the change you
Be
want
the
to see in the world.
be
Be
the
it.
change that says
Not think
people
about it, not try it, be it.
be that person that models the way, that says that this is, if you want to talk about you value your employees, prove it. You say you care about certain things or kumbaya this or that, prove it. Act like it. Put yourself out there first. Be the one that says, oh, we're going to try this. It's okay to try it. I'll try it first. Model that way, because people are going to watch, people are going to listen, and they're going to pick up those cues and clues. Maybe you're in an organization where you can't control the entire culture. You can control your team culture to a certain degree. You can lead the
That
charge and say, we're going to do things differently.
that wasn't my entire career prior to coaching.
Yeah.
I worked in a business where my leader, a beautiful, beautiful person, terrible leader, not even a good manager.
Wow.
But I had a team that I just refused to be the same. And so I sort of insulated and said, we're going to create a different culture in this department.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you don't have to wait for the great big bodacious whatever and somebody, why are you waiting to be rescued? Rescue yourself, right?
It's the only way.
Right.
Like as hard as it is, I think Mel Robbins has this quote on social media, and she says, nobody's coming.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come to save you. Unfortunately, no one is coming.
Yeah.
It's up to you.
Yeah. And you can do that in a way that even if you start small and say, well, hey, I at least have a locus of control over what I do as the leader of my group, my team, my department, my family. That has spin-offs. Other people will see when those things change. They'll see the difference. They might scratch their heads at first and go, what the hell's going on over there? But they're going to notice. And we most of us have seen this somewhere in our lives, in our working lives. Like, wow, look at those people over there and how well they get along and how they're just rocking it all over the place. What's their magic over there? And you start to take a look at that. Where over here, this department is dysfunctional. They can't get along. They all hate each other. It's a shambles. It doesn't take you don't need a shovel to dig in and figure out what some of those differences are. And yet they're in the same company.
100%. And I also think it's really important in these leadership conversations to talk about the why. Well, why would we do this? What is the benefit? If I go down this road that might be challenging,
Yep.
what is on the other side of the rainbow?
Yeah.
Um,
There's our friend Simon again. Start with why. People want to know,
why?
why are we doing this? Why do we have to do it this way? Why do you care? Why are you
And
like
the
you are?
why is riches. And I
Yeah.
don't mean
Yeah.
money. You
Mhm.
know, I watch my kids nowadays because I think I'm not perfect parent, but I think we've done a pretty doggone good job. And I just sit back as they becoming adults and just literally times well up with tears and pride.
Oh,
The riches,
fabulous. Yeah.
you know, I see as I work with leaders, how they start to shift their leadership
Mhm.
and how that translates into the the culture of their organization, the overall like just happiness
Mhm.
or lack of stress
Mhm.
that is has permeated the halls of their organization, which then translates to results,
Mhm.
teamwork, a
Yeah.
good culture,
Yeah.
a place that people are excited to come in and work
Yeah.
so that they have a
Imagine that.
purpose.
Right. Imagine that.
This
How
is why we do this
priceless.
leadership thing.
Right. Exactly. And I mean, imagine, again, for those watching or listening, how much better would your life and the lives of people in your life be if you had this ripple effect that said, because of some changes that I'm making in my leadership and how I impact others, I'm happier coming to work. I'm happier with my relationships with whomever I touch at work, in the sense that, whether it's my vendors, it's my customers, it's my colleagues, it's whomever. And what if we all feel better about, I mean, that's part of my passion too,
Well,
Andy, is like, just if we can help people be and do better, better businesses mean we all have a better world. You're going to come home with more energy and lightness and happiness and enthusiasm, instead of just going, oh my God, I just want to shut this crappy day away and
yeah,
start
it
it all over again
creates
tomorrow. So much to look forward to.
good leadership often and good culture often reduces a lot of the stress and anxiety and emotional toll that can take place in organizations. And when that happens, I've seen it switch
Yeah.
with clients
Yeah.
and their teams. When that happens, it gets people rowing in the same direction toward their ultimate goal. And when you start to leverage the power of each individual moving in the same direction, businesses tend to scale, to
Yes.
grow.
Yep. Yeah.
That's why we do this thing.
Right. I love that. I mean, I always, I've got a visual analogy of, do you want to be on the whitewater rafting excursion out of control? And that's kind of fun a little bit. It can be a little exciting. Or do you want to be on the rowing team where everybody's pulling in the same direction smoothly?
Yeah.
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 I know which one most of us, I think, want to be the day in and day out ride. And I don't think it's the whitewater rapids. I think it's about doing things in our leadership practices that take that stress and strain off us and others, and we all win.
Yeah. It's
Yeah.
totally, totally possible.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
It's,
and that's part of why I get up to
yeah.
do what I do is to help those and support those leaders and teams to be able to create not just the business, but the life they want.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I mean, we're going to have more conversations, but that's why I really wanted you on here, because I know that's exactly the kind of thing that you do. And it's such important work that you do. And,
Thanks.
I'm just going to kind of close this out by saying, and I think you will agree with me, when you think about anybody who watches top athletes or anybody who does any top kind of performance, I'll use athletes, even though I ain't sporty spice, but what do they all have? Coaches. They
Yeah.
didn't figure it out all by themselves. The coach didn't do it for them, but they had somebody like you who came in and helped them get out of their own damn way so that they could become the best that they could be. And
And
so,
I
people
love
in
that.
leadership roles in business, why aren't you treating yourself like the, rock star athlete, and make yourself the best performer that you can be?
Yeah. And those like elite performers in sports or anything else, they didn't wait
No,
until things were falling apart
no,
with their swing or their shot, or they're like, I want incremental growth
Yep.
every single day.
Yep.
That's how people become elite.
Yes. And then they work at it and they
Yeah.
take those risks. And sometimes they don't make it.
Well, Jordan has all kinds of great quotes about
Yeah.
how many championships, how many last final shots he missed, how many games he lost.
Yeah.
It's just part of the gig.
Right. Exactly. So we as leaders in business, we can do this too.
100%.
Awesome. Hey, Andy, so glad that you joined me today. Thanks everybody for tuning in to another episode of Nuggets with Sauce. We will see you all again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning into this episode of Nuggets with Sauce. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to like and subscribe so you get notified with new episodes as they come out. In the meantime, focus on setting yourself up for success and others too.